Narayana. Hari Om and greetings from Pittsburgh. When someone hurts you, when someone harms you, how many times are you ready to forgive them? When someone hurts you, someone harms you, think of the last time this happened. How ready were you to forgive them? Intellectually, we want to share many times. In actuality, we tend to look around. That person's not so forgiving. That person is vengeful. So I think, why should I forgive? Yes? There's actually a movie called The Revenant, which is literally about someone who's seeking revenge. Their whole purpose is revenge. When we take up the study of Ramayana, of any of our Puranas, we see how God and everyone connected to God is constantly forgiving. Right now, Bhagwan Rama is in Lanka, right outside the fortress, and he's ready to forgive Ravana. And not just him, Hanumanji is ready, Jambavan is ready, Angada is ready. We are trying to go deeper into our potential. Because the highest forgiveness is not taking offense in the first place. If I have to forgive someone, I took offense. But someone who's more large-hearted, someone who's tuned into the infinite, they don't even take offense. And we do this relatively. If an infant comes and pulls your hair, when Vyasa pulls my beard, I don't pull his ear back. Because there's no intention. I'm unoffendable by Vyasa. By Srila, that's very different. But by Vyasa, he cannot offend me. When we began our Vedanta and Ramayana course, I had shared, when Bhagwan Vishnu decided to become Bhagwan Rama, to incarnate, the Veda decided to incarnate as Ramayana. Our course is to show us that Vedanta, can be practiced. This can infuse our day-to-day affairs with Rama, with joy. Last week, we saw Ravana, who now knows that Bhagwan Rama is in Lanka. And what is Ravana doing, knowing that the enemy is at the doorstep of the fortress? Swachanda. Swachanda means he's indulging, staying up late, watching dancing, drinking, sleeping late. Swachanda, indulgent, indisciplined, doing what he feels he wants to do. And what is Bhagwan Rama doing? He's engaged in swatantra. Swatantra means he's being independent, he's being disciplined, he's preparing for what is going to happen. Swachanda versus swatantra. This morning I came across a lovely quote by Swami Vivekananda. Please listen carefully. Real freedom is not merely doing what you like, but also not doing what you like. Our idea of freedom is doing what we like. But Swami Vivekananda is saying freedom is also not doing what you like. How many of you would prefer to sleep in on Sunday morning? They can put a lie detector and you'll still put your hand up. But your freedom is that you woke up on Sunday morning and you're attending these classes, especially those in Portland. You're 3 hours behind and still you're studying in this environment. And this reminds me, this scene, Ravana, Bhagavan Rama, of a quote that Swami Tejamayana shared often when we were studying. The more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. The more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. You see how Ravana is so unprepared, and Bhagavan Rama is constantly preparing. War hasn't begun, but he knows this is inevitable. It's like people who put their snow tires on in November instead of January. So we had studied that, and we also studied how Ravana keeps bringing up how he's devoted to Bhagavan Shiva, and he keeps referencing the past. I lifted up Kailasha. I offered my heads. Ever living in the past. And when someone does that, what do they miss out on? The present. Whereas Bhagavan Rama, this war is going to happen, he's asking his ministers, what should we do? He is the master, but he's constantly empowering others to be part of this plan, to be part of this service. That requires paying attention in the present. Paying attention to our youth, particularly. If you travel around to other organizations in any religious sense, particularly Sanatana Dharma, what would the average age be of the person in that institution? It would be much older, correct? Here, what would the average age be? 12, 15, 20? That's a sign of being dynamic. Ravana is stagnating, Bhagavan Rama is dynamic. And by reading how they think, how they speak, this becomes our map, our plan. We continue. I'm on the 26th section of Chaupais, and I am reading the third Chaupai, the first line. So 26th section, third Chaupai, first line. Rama manuja kasa re sata banga dhanvi kamu nadi puni ganga. Angada is saying to Ravana. Where is Angada right now? He's in Ravana's sabha. Remember, he went in with that focused mind. And he calls Ravana Banga. Banga is like Buddhu. That you're someone who's closed-minded. You're not listening. You think Bhagavan Rama's a mortal? He is a man? That's the same as saying Kamadeva is an ordinary archer. Is Kamadeva an ordinary archer? He can go anywhere and hit anyone, including Bhagavan Shiva. There are ramifications for it, but he was courageous in that sense. Do you think that Ganga is just a nadi, just a stream? So Angada is sharing this with Ravana in front of everyone. So what happened between Angada coming into the court and him sharing this? This section is actually one of the most popular sections of Ramayana. There is a lively dialogue between Angada and Ravana. And whenever people put on plays, Rama Lila, people love being Angada and Ravana here. They're not interested in being Hanumanji or Bhagavan Rama. They want to get into this dialogue. This is very Bollywood-style dialogue, back and forth. Angada begins the dialogue by saying, Bhagavan Rama will forgive you. This is how he begins. And Ravana says, I've heard of Vali before. He knows this is Vali's son. I've heard of Vali. Where is Vali now? Lots of sarcasm and deep hurt. Vali's not alive anymore, and he's saying, where is this Vali of yours? He's saying to Angada. So Angada says, he's your friend. You'll meet him in 10 days. Where he is, you're also going there. So Ravana says, your master has become weak. He keeps sending all of you to come speak to me. I think he's missing his wife. That's why he's infatuated. Ravana is saying this about Bhagwan Rama. So Angada says, Ravana, you have 20 eyes and you have 20 ears, but I don't think you can see or hear anything. Someone who's blind and deaf understands more than you do. So then Ravana says, I know another kind of monkey, the ones that dance on the street, the ones that dance and clap as slaves of their master. It's getting pretty harsh, right? It's like brothers and sisters when they get into these intense dialogues. So Angada says, you keep talking about how dharmic you are. The English word used in this translation is, decorum. Is it dharmic to kidnap another person's wife? Is it decorum to ignore your family? You are the master of dharma. Then Ravana says, and there's so many lines where he says, my bhuja bala. Bhuja means arms. The strength of my arms has lifted Kailasha. The strength of my arms, I've cut my head and offered this to Bhagavan Shiva. There's so many lines that are like this, which is why we're studying the essence of Ramayana. If I were to study each line, it would be quite redundant. There's a subtlety in this. People who don't think keep using the same argument, correct? They just repeat the same thing again and again and again. Ravana's like Duryodhana. He knows he's wrong, and he keeps saying he's right. But they both knew that they were wrong. Finally, Angada says, you know your city that's burnt down? You know who burnt it down? He's one of our runners. He's one of our messengers that burnt this Lanka down. Imagine his master Sugriva. Imagine his master, that is Rama. Then Ravana says that your master is someone whose father didn't want him, which is why he exiled him. His wife didn't want him, which is why she allowed herself to be kidnapped. And when Angada hears this, he cannot handle this. And he roars and he smashes his fists against the ground, and everyone starts to shake, particularly Ravana, because he's so imbalanced, right? Big upper body, small lower body. And all of his 10 crowns fall down. And in his embarrassment, he tries to pick them up, and he only picks up 6, because Angada quickly takes those other 4 and throws them away. And when those crowns were thrown away, he threw them towards Bhagwan Rama and all of the beings, and they all thought it was a meteor shower. Because it was shining so much, it's daytime. And Hanumanji caught all of those and offered this at Bhagwan Rama's feet. So this is some of the katha. Okay? Let's study some of the Vedanta in all of this. When Angada tells Ravana that Bhagwan Rama will forgive you, he says you should go to Bhagwan Rama with straw in your teeth and an axe at your neck. Who chews straw in their teeth? A cow, exactly. You go to Bhagwan Rama like a cow. And he's not saying that in an insulting way. He's saying go there with meaning. You know, cows are icons of sincerity. When their calves are born, how much they lactate. When their calves are taken away, how much they cry. Cows are a symbol of sincerity. So this description, Angada is telling Ravana, go there with meaning, and Bhagavan Rama will forgive you. And now the same with us in life. If we sincerely ask someone for forgiveness, even if they don't forgive you, you've done your part, correct? That's all that Bhagavan, any sensible person, only wants you to be sincere, correct? So this is some of the Vedanta to all of this. As Ravana is being passive-aggressive, he's talking about his dead father. He's saying that Mother Sita wanted to be kidnapped. These are really rough statements. What is Ravana trying to do? He's trying to create bheda, or separation between Bhagavan Rama and Angada. He's trying to trick Angada into thinking his master is like this. But only someone who's weak in mind can and will give in to negativity. Can and will give in to dussanga. And Swami Tejamananda had shared, only someone who is incomplete will give in to a bribe. He specifically mentioned that. You can bribe someone who's not happy, correct? You can never bribe someone who's happy with their job or happy with their relationship. Angada is happy. Ravana is unhappy, which is why he's trying this strategy. While Ravana's having this dialogue, what word does he never use? He never uses the word Rama. If you study Ramayana, he never uses the word Rama. He'll say your master, he'll say the two brothers, he'll say the ascetics, but he'll never use the word Rama. Now imagine I told you, don't use your own name. How conscious you would have to be not to use your own name, correct? Sometimes the reflection adventure of the week I give people is, don't use the pronoun I. How many times I say I? You'd have to be so conscious of it. So though Ravana's not saying Rama, he's constantly thinking of Rama. And why I'm bringing this up is because we study in Bhagavad Gita that the last thought you have is where you will be directed when your body changes. So Ravana is actually a covert bhakta. He is a devotee of Bhagavan Rama. He just has too much pride to admit it. A lot of secretive pride that Ravana has. And now completing this chopai, I just told you about how Angada is saying that, do you think Kamadeva is an ordinary Bose person? Do you think that Ganga is a river? Have you heard such comparisons before? Chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita, Vibhuti Yoga, where Bhagavan Krishna tells Arjuna, out of all of the Pandavas, I am Dhananjaya. Out of all of that doesn't move, I am Himalaya. The seed for Vibhuti Yoga, which is in the next yuga, the next period of time, is in Ramayana, is in this period when Bhagavan Rama is living. And I'm consciously pointing this out to all of you because we think of Ramayana as a kid's play. We think of Ramayana as a TV serial, when in actuality, this week I told you about Gita. Remember last week I told you about Purusha Suktam and the Upanishad. Ramayana covers all of these subjects. We'll study one more chopai and then we'll shift to our discussion. I'm on the 34th section of chopais. This is the fourth chopai, the second line. So 34, 4, second line. Samuji Rama Pratapa Kapi Kopa Sabha ma japana kari pada ropa. Angada, who's had enough of Ravana and his harsh words, puts down his foot in the middle of that sabha and says, try to move my foot. And he even has the courage to say that if anyone can move my foot, I will admit defeat for our army and Mother Sita can stay in Lanka. Angada is saying that on behalf of Bhagavan Rama. That's intense. That's taking this dialogue to a new dimension. So last week, Angada goes into the sabha and sits down. And I can't remember if I told you. Once, Bhagavan Krishna was invited by Duryodhana to the sabha. This is right before the war. And Duryodhana told all of the sabha, the ministers, the advisors, don't stand up when Duryodhana comes. Sorry, when Bhagavan Krishna comes. That was his only instruction, don't stand up. So Bhagavan Krishna jovially walks into that sabha. Who gets up first? Duryodhana. He's the first one to get up. Everyone else gets up too. They have their dialogue. Then Bhagavan Krishna leaves. Then Duryodhana comes back to his senses and says, hey, how come all of you are standing? And they all said, you stood up first. So the same happened here. Ravana was the first to stand up when Angada stood up. Then Angada is having this dialogue. And now finally Angada says, move my foot. You know that saying, my foot? I think it started from here. So what happened from this dialogue to Angada being so intense? Ravana tells Angada, when I was born, Lord Brahma read my lines, his Janam-patri. And Ravana's Janam-patri said that he will die at the hands of a mortal. Lord Brahma, the one who holds the Veda, the one who is the manager of the multiverse. And you know what Ravana says? When Lord Brahma read my Janam-patri, he was senile. He was suffering from dementia. This is all stated in full detail here. Now again, it's showing the personality of someone who's wrong thinks everyone else is wrong, correct? They project that. And when Angada comes into this sabha and he puts his foot down, he tells Ravana, I can destroy you and take Mother Sita back with me. However, that was not the guidance that I was given. Hanumanji could have done it. Angada could have done it. But both of them remembered who their master is. So he tells Ravana that. And Angada says, though I can kill you right now, there will be no pride in that because you're already dead. And there's such a thoughtful part of Ramayana here, which I will read to you in detail. He says that if I killed someone who's already killed, if I slay that which is already slain, no credit will come to me. He says there's 14 types of people who, though alive, are not living. Now Halloween is coming up. What do we call those people who are not alive but are moving around? Zombies. So zombies, that description comes up here in Lanka Kanda. Pay more attention to this, okay? There's 14 types of personalities that are breathing but not thinking. And as I read this out, do not look to the person next to you. If you want, you can look at the person in front of you, but better is if you analyze yourself. So I'll begin. The first zombie is someone who's the follower of the Vama Marga, which really means, in English, the left-hand path to God. And another description is Aghora. People who participate in that which is prohibited. And I'm going to take some more time here. Do you all remember, I think it came out last year, there was a a documentary on CNN called Believer. I forgot the person's name, but he's so useless that no more has come of him. But he studied Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism, and he studied someone who's a Vama Margi, an Agori. Some of the practices of an Agori is not to bathe, to drink their own urine, to do sadhana on freshly burned corpses. Sanatana Dharma may have 1 billion people. I'm generalizing. I would say 0.01% practice Agora. Now, can you say that an entire religion of 1 billion people, this is their practice? But that's what happens, correct? We love that which is sensational. And for the typical ignorant person, they believe that's what Hinduism is, isn't it? Your house smells like this. You look like this. When in actuality, Tulsidas Ji, through Angada, is saying that someone who practices this is breathing but not thinking. Number 1. Number 2 is someone who's succumbed to lust. A lusty person is breathing but not thinking. Number 3 is a kripanaha. What does kripanaha mean? Miser. Someone who doesn't spend their money and doesn't allow you to spend your money. If you spend your money, they judge you, correct? Kripanaha. Number 4 is someone who's vimudha. Mudha means moody. Vimudha means vishesha mudha, someone who's extremely moody. Here in English it says stupid fellow. It actually says grossly stupid fellow. Is 4. 5 is someone who's destitute. Now, why is this person alive but not thinking? Someone who's starving, can they think of God? Can they think of development? All they think about is food, rightfully so. A zombie, they just need food, warmth. 6 is someone suffering from disrepute. When someone's been insulted, all they think about is that insult, correct? If I publicly criticize you right now, you won't think about the criticism, you'll think about that feeling in front of everyone. 6. 7 is an extremely old person. And here, please pay attention to the word extreme. Do not be offended by this. Someone who's extremely old, that what's being described is someone who's losing their hearing, losing their sight, losing their digestion. They can't think. 8 is someone who's always sick. You all know someone like that. They are always suffering from some sort of allergy, some sort of migraine, some sort of indigestion. So that person too is a zombie. 9, and this is now more descriptive of us, someone who's always angry. Yes, someone who's always angry is a zombie. 10, someone who's hostile to God. An atheist. I heard this joke. Pay attention because it's a subtle joke. But that ruins the joke when I tell you it's a subtle joke, correct? An atheist, a vegan, and a cross-trainer all walk into a bar. I know, they already told me. See, someone who's a cross-trainer or an atheist or a vegan, they'll tell you they are even if you don't ask, correct? They'll tell you, I'm a vegan, even though you didn't ask. I'm an atheist, even though you didn't ask. So someone who's hostile to God, an atheist, sometimes they think about God more, isn't it? 11, an enemy of the Vedas. In our annual Seva training yesterday, I shared one of the most frustrating parts about being a parent, and I've not come across this yet because our son is so young, is when a child doesn't try to be better, doesn't try to be healthier or smarter or more polite or more organized. Yes? Frustrating? Our Veda is a catalyst to being better. It teaches yoga. When someone's an enemy to the Vedas, that means they are complacent. They're a zombie. 12, someone who exclusively nourishes their body. Their living is just about eating and drinking. Hiranyakashipu, someone whose bed was made up of gold. Their whole waking state is thinking about sleeping. We do that at work, isn't it? We work all day just to not work. 13, someone who's ever engaged in slandering others. We all know people who never have anything positive to say about another person, another experience, ever slandering. And 14, someone who is a papi, someone who's always engaged in that which is moving them away from happiness. Why am I describing this? Because Angada is saying there's no point in killing you because you're already dead. And really he's describing Ravana, no? These are all descriptions of Ravana. Now I'm going to bring in another framework for all of you. As soon as we complete our study of Ramayana, we're going to begin our study of Bhagavatam. And in Bhagavatam, there's a dialogue where Raja Parikshit tells Kali that you can live in 5 places. You're banished from Bharat Varsha. Aryavarta, you cannot live here other than 5 places. You all know of these places. These 5 places are casinos, bars, prostitution rings, slaughterhouses, and the 5th. What's the 5th? Gold. Indians. It's shared in Bhagavatam. So I'm sharing again. It is casinos, bars, prostitution rings, slaughterhouses, and gold is where selfishness lives. A lot of that is contained in here. What Guruji shared is these are called the Pancha Makaras. Try to remember the Pancha Makaras. These 5 mas are Madhya. Madhya means alcohol. Next is Matsya. Matsya means meat. Next is Mamsa, which literally means flesh. You should interpret this as gold. Mamsa could be interpreted as fur. Fur, gold. The 4th is Madira. Madira again means alcohol, but here it means gambling. Madhya is alcohol. Madira is where you're intoxicated. Someone who's playing the slots, sometimes you see, you can't pull them away from that. And it's funny, on every gambling sign in small print it says, if you have a problem, call this number, but I can't read the number. And finally is Maithuna, which literally means sex, but we have to interpret it as lust. So such consistencies are being shared between Ramayana and Bhagavatam. Angada says there's no point in me destroying you, but I've had enough of you speaking negatively about my master, which is why he bangs down on the ground and shakes Ravana. It is a papa to listen to someone speak negatively about your master's teachings, your master's work. Now this is a subtle point because we're taught to tolerate, we're taught to accept. When someone's speaking negatively about Sri Ramakrishna, at one point there was a group of haters who described Sri Ramakrishna as mentally retarded. He was always reveling in joy, dancing. Like an infant. That's what infants do. No reason why they're smiling. Would we call an infant in these exact words as mentally retarded? We would never do that. But there's haters like that. And if you can correct someone, you should. It is your responsibility to correct them that this is actually his personality. This is what he's experiencing. The same goes with an organization. In our case, Chinmaya Mission. If someone's not going to listen, walk away. Because continuing to listen will only influence us. If you can influence someone, influence them. If you can't, walk away. That's why Angada said, you're not listening. You're a banga. So what does he do? He bangs his hands, puts his foot down. That's it. Dialogue's over now. You try to move my foot. If you can, I leave. If you can't, we're coming. So much conflict resolution is showed in the intricacies of Ramayana. One of the corporate workshops I'm working on right now is conflict resolution. And I'm extracting these teachings from Ramayana and Mahabharata. So one day we'll have such a workshop together. Oh.